I believe we are in action. Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, welcome, and greetings, and thank you so much for allowing us to figure out what was going on with the camera and our technical difficulties. But I wanted to start out by personally welcoming you all to Michelle Speaks, our series on military sexual assault survivor series, in light of April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We wanted to be sure that we highlighted some individuals that have endured and overcome sexual assault, um, and have turned their tragedies into triumph. For those of you that are not aware, some of the statistics on sexual assault, there are in the military, there are 20,000, over 20,000 service members that have been the victims of sexual assault, 13,000 women and 7,500 men. Nationwide, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been the victims of sexual assault. And so we wanted to highlight that, share stories of strength and resiliency and hope, and also provide resources for those that have encountered it or you know someone that has encountered it. So again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Michele Quartier. I am the CEO of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. Also a life recovery coach. Um, but I'm on because this is something that is near and dear to my heart. And so I really wanted to honor service members and veterans that have encountered or are encountering it, as well as highlighting those that are not in the military, just in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So, with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to the host of the day, Miss Ciandra Dilly, the founder of Inspire for Purpose. And I will let her share more about what it is that she does before we get started.
Yes. Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me to be a part of this momentous occasion. I think it's very uh, humble of you to showcase a topic such as um, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I know we have it on the calendars, but I don't know if people really quite celebrate and bring as much awareness to it because it is such a difficult topic to actually broach and encounter on a, just kind of reliving the experience. And so I want to say thank you for actually doing this interview. With me, I think it's just totally just humble, just eye opening. And sometimes, I know when we talk about these things, it can bring back memories of the past. But I know that you're a woman who is transparent, a person who is vulnerable in all facets of life. And so I hope that what Michele Quartier is doing, the woman of Michelle Speaks, if you hide it, you can't heal it. I hope that this will actually go out and help others in the community, letting people know that they can actually talk about the things that's actually happening in their lives and the trauma that they've actually suffered. And you no longer have to hide that pain. You no longer have to wear a mask with these types of things. And so as we get into this interview, as we're just candidly talking about a lot of things that you guys may have questions to, a lot of things that you guys may not know, um, Michelle's going to be sharing all of that with you. So leading by example, Michele Quartier of Michelle Speaks, we're going to kick this right on off and get into it. And so again, just thank you for being so humble to share this with me, Inspire for Purpose, and the whole world, people that's tuning in all over the globe. So we thank you. So let's just get into it. So who is
Thank you so
Michele Quartier? Yeah, yeah, you're totally welcome. So who are you? Let the world know who you are.
Well, personally, I am a people will say that I'm kind of eclectic or kind of, weird, but I don't see it as weird. I just, I dance to the beat of my own drummer. And so personally, I'm a free spirit. I'm adventurous, I'm caring, I'm loving, I'm loyal. Um, will do anything for anyone. Um, I have an altar, another side, as we all do, and I call that side Mickey. And so, you know, I try to keep her under wraps as much as possible. So that is who I am personally. Who I am professionally is I am an advocate. I have always had a heart to advocate for those that don't have a voice, to be a defender of the defenseless, a voice for the voiceless. Um, And I do that in a myriad of ways. I'm the founder of Healing Women, Healing Nations of Northeast Florida, and that is a nonprofit that's focused on helping women and women veterans that have encountered trauma, abuse, assault, or have mental health challenges secondary to trauma. And so, I'm also the CEO of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. And that was birthed, out of my desire to um, just put the spotlight on things that normally we sweep under the rug, or like you said earlier, we wear that proverbial mask, just to provide a platform, an environment where people can have hope, be safe, be transparent, be vulnerable, be accountable, and know that they're not alone, and have resources to know that they can move beyond their tragedies and still live a triumphant life. And so, I'm an author, somewhat of a psalmist, not really. I can carry a tune. Um, that's me personally, and I say this all the time. You cannot separate the personal from the professional. So, and I really am honored to be able to highlight this topic. And myself and four other brave individuals are going to be highlighting their journeys and how they turn those tragedies into triumphs. So I'm honored to be kicking it off. Normally I like to go last, but so I'm just going to go ahead and get my story out of the way so that we can honor these other individuals that have been brave enough to share their journeys. And so
Indeed.
that's who I am in a nutshell. And spiritually, of course, I'm a woman of God. I'm a woman of faith. I love the Lord with all my heart, mind, soul, and body. And so that's the foundation of all of who I am and all that I do.
Well, indeed, you're actually definitely leading by example. So I'm glad that you're actually kicking this off because oftentimes, it's very hard to lead. And so by you actually taking the charge and leading by example, I know others will come forth in the other interviews that you're going to be doing throughout the course of the month, of next month, and for people to see. So let's just dig a little bit deeper. So I know that you served in the United States Navy, and I know when you were in the Navy that an assault took place, a tragedy. And so can you just explain a little bit about how you've been impacted by, I know there's been multiple assaults that you've actually have had to deal with that actually happened in your life. So can you just tell us how you were impacted by these assaults and how it affected you, mentally, spiritually, and professionally?
Right, right. Well, that's a loaded question. So I'll try to break it down into chunks. As far as my military service and that experience, I have to backtrack. I actually, one of the reasons that I joined the military outside of wanting to serve my country, because I've always had a heart to serve, I'm a servant at heart, is that I was running in a sense. I was trying to escape not only a dysfunctional upbringing, but also just some things that had occurred, prior to me going into the military. And one of those things was actually being assaulted sexually, and that began at a very young age and continued through my young adult, my young years, my young adult years, and into my adulthood and into my military service. So I actually joined partly because of that, and ran right into the very thing that I was running from, trying to escape. You know how they say you jump out of the frying pan into the fire. So, and so, how was I impacted by it? Well, first, when I went into the military, I was focused. I was very, I'm very driven. Like I want to excel in everything. I put my all into everything that I do. And that was the mindset that I went into the military with.
Mhm.
And coming from a military family, both my mom and my dad, thank you for your service. They're, retired. But they were part of the reason that I joined as well. And so going in with that mindset, I was not prepared for the things that I encountered at my first duty station. But as I've been taught to do, throughout my childhood, is we just put on our bootstraps and make things happen and work through whatever comes. We adapt and overcome, and so that's what I did. And so the incident itself, it was one of my fellow service members, that I had been working with and that I had developed a rapport with and established a relationship with, not a intimate relationship, just platonic. And so I was completely devastated because it came out of the blue. when I was assaulted. Um, we were watching a movie. We had where I was stationed in Korea, we had our own rooms. And so, individual rooms. And so we had, gone out and done some stuff, a big group of us during the day. And I came back and I was invited to watch a movie. And I was like, sure, thinking that it was going to be, everybody, a group of us, but it wasn't. And I didn't think anything of it. And so um, when that happened, I don't want to get into the details of it, but when that happened, it totally shattered my whole sense of safety and security, and everything that I believed and thought the military stood for was just devastated.
Right, because the core values in the military are the honor, courage. For the Navy is honor, courage, and commitment. And so, for this to happen to you, that does not show as an example of what those actual core values are.
Mhm. And so I will say for the first, I'd say week or so, I was pretty much in shock. So I didn't know what to do. I think I was on autopilot. I just, I performed. I did what I was supposed to do. I got up, I got dressed, I went to work, I did PT, I did my job. I went, I was still, I guess, trying to process it. And so when I made the decision to try and report it, I was encouraged by my command. They said, we've got this, we're going to look into it, we're going to investigate it. And I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I'm young. It's my first duty station, a long way away from home. And so that week that I reported turned into a month. That month turned into, months and weeks. And it just, never, nothing ever came of it. And when I inquired about it, I was advised to just move on. And I will tell you that made me feel less than, Um, and so how it impacted my military service, I just did focus on what I could excel in, what I could control. I couldn't control what happened to me,
Mhm.
but I could control, my career. I could control, how I excelled in the military. That was my go-to. And I think that's been my go-to, as throughout my life. I excel. I have to excel at the things that I do. And so maybe that's a coping, mechanism, but that's what I did. And
Well, knowing
so,
you personally, I know that you do excel. You excel in everything that you do. You said something that was key. You reported it, and I know that had to take great courage, great strength. To be able to do that, because in the military, oftentimes, and especially with women, as we know, um, even in our world, we know women's rights, it took a long time for us to get some of the same rights as men. And even in 2020, in this day and age, we know that even our pay is still not equal to men. And there's still a lot of things that we're having to overcome to have equal rights. But you mentioned the thing about reporting. I know in the military, they have a couple of things where you can do like, unreported, or you can do like a reported report. And I know in doing that, oftentimes that actually kind of re-victimizes the victim. Can you share a little bit about that whole reporting of the incident? I know you said it took weeks and then months and that kind of thing, but how did the military really play a role in supporting you? Did they support you? Did they re-victimize you? What happened throughout that process?
well, I would have to say I was not supported, and it wasn't really a process. It took me, I say, a week or so to gather up the courage to go and report it, because there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of, well, what could I have done differently, and what did I do to cause him to think that that was okay, for him to do that. And so having to overcome that, and then in my mind, because we live in our minds a lot, I'm thinking about all these possible scenarios, and none of them were good. So, it took a lot for me to report. And some of the things that I've seen and that have happened when that is reported is that um, they are re-victimized, they are ostracized, they are, blacklisted, they are, they're made to continue to work alongside, their perpetrator. And a lot of times their character is maligned or attacked. And so a lot of individuals choose the road of not reporting and just attempting to deal with it. And then it impacts, every other aspect of their life. You begin to see behavioral problems, in the military, within their performance or in their work life or however, they begin getting written up or, having addiction or substance abuse problems. And nobody really tries to get to the root of like, why is this? What started this? What started them on that path? And so it's a lot. And so you have to weigh, you weigh that. Do I report and do I risk, this
Mhm.
affecting my career? Do I risk not being believed? Do I risk, my advancement opportunities? Do you run that risk? And so for me, I chose to report, but the longer that it went without any feedback, and then when I got that feedback, I was very um, disillusioned with a service that I thought that I was proud
Right.
to be a part of. But it didn't cause me to leave the military because I wanted to still be able to take care of my family at the time. And so,
So
but it impacted how I showed up. Yeah.
you mentioned that, you had a family, during the time. So, with that being said, you continuously, going to work, showing up, doing your job, all of those things, and having to work alongside the perpetrator. How did that, play a part, in your role, like mentally? Yeah, how did that really affect your emotions and your feelings toward this thing? Did you ever have a conversation with the perpetrator, or, you know,
Never
like
had
what?
a conversation. I never had a conversation with him. Honestly, I believe I just stuffed it. I suppressed it,
Mm,
and I believe that was how I was able to continue
mhm,
to work, to live, to advance.
mhm,
Because
mhm.
at the time that it happened, I was not yet married at that time, or had I had my daughter. But the time that I began having challenges and issues with it, it was years later, like when I had a family, when I had a daughter, and I was still in the military, but I was having a lot of challenges, personally, relationally, financially. I was super vigilant about how I guarded my daughter, and who she was around and who she was with. And um, it just impacted, I used other things to try to, not at the time realizing that that was a part of it, to try to numb, um, the things that I was feeling that I didn't want to feel.
What do you think the greatest relationship, as being a wife, being a mom, all the other relationships that you have with your friends and family and things, what do you think the single most greatest relationship was affected by the trauma, that you suffered at the hands of, of another service member?
I would say the greatest relationship that was impacted the most was my relationship with my daughter, because I became this overprotective, and I'm sure at times she thought overbearing, um, always hovering, mother. And so, and on a deeper level, I believe it impacted our relationship because I didn't share this with her for a long time. Like, I believe, I don't
Mhm.
think I shared it before I wrote my first book, Releasing the Pain. Um, but it kind of caused me to put up a barrier, a wall of sorts. I was very, um, so focused on making sure that she was protected, that I protected her from everything, really sheltering her.
Right.
And when you do that, that just leads to rebellion. You
Yes.
know, so she's very stubborn. She's very independent in a good way, but it impacted our relationship because it just put a barrier, a wall between us of sorts. Our relationship today is awesome. We talk about everything, and when I say everything, she shares everything. But
Sounds
what
like
I
she's sharing too much, huh?
no, 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 not at all. I love that she entrusts me enough to be able to share with me the things that she does. But this is the thing that I wanted to highlight as well. Military sexual trauma is not something that is new to the military,
Right.
but it is something that is just now, the spotlight is being put on it within the last, I say, 6 or 7 years or so. It may even be longer. Um, and I'm so adamant about speaking out about it because after I had been sharing on a platform nationally for some years about, the sexual assault and the military sexual trauma, I learned that my mother had also encountered that during her service. And so to me, I'm focused on how the selfishness of one individual in my family line has impacted three generations, um, not just of the women, but everybody that's involved, the family, and so I, I that is the relationship that was impacted the most, my daughter.
Do you think, with your mom, because it was a different day and time when she was
Right.
in the military, as to when you
Yeah.
joined the military, and we know a lot of things are still slow going, as slow as molasses sometimes, with things changing in our service, that we share and that we give unto the nation. So, do you think that possibly, you think that it's like an obstacle maybe that kind of brought along some of the negative effects and things that you kind of you have in your life to this day, maybe some of the thought processes, some of the decisions, the decision making skills that you had that even made you think that your mom maybe not having the courage that you did to come forward to be able to voice and to share with her command what had happened to her. Do you think that has played a negative role in your life, and if so, if it has, how?
That was a lot. So you're gonna have to ask me that question.
So what are some of the obstacles that you run into trying to help minimize the negative effects of the trauma that's happened to you, and how do you think your mom played a role in some of those negative effects, if indeed she did at all?
Well, I can't really speak to my mom's journey. And we didn't speak in detail about it. I just know that, she experienced that as well. How has it impacted me and how I show up and how I manage my day-to-day life?
Yes.
Um, I have good and bad days, but it's very difficult for me to trust. It takes a long time for you to gain my trust and gain access into my inner core. I categorize people in my life by outer core, inner core, holiest of holies, because I'm a woman of faith, and so I'm founded on that. And so it takes a lot for people to gain access to that holy of holies. And even then, there's only a certain extent that they're going to get.
Right.
They don't get to into the inner recesses of my heart, much as I would like to, and much as that has one or two people have gained ingress like that. But it's challenging. I am very hyper vigilant in everything that I do. I'm always analyzing. I'm very, probably over analytical. You know, I'm second guessing when people say things to me. I'm like, okay, well, like, what do they really mean? You
Right.
know? And so I'm very in how I move. Everything is calculated. Everything is thought out. There is a creative side of me, but I believe I went use that as a way to, as an outlet. I have a creative side. Like I love to write, I love to sing, I love to dance, I love to do things like that. But being out and among people, about among people for an extended period of time, is very stressful. It causes me a lot of anxiety. Um, I've learned how to manage that to be able to do the things that I need to do. However, it's very taxing. It's very exhausting mentally, very exhausting. Um, and so I've put some things in place to help me to be able to navigate that on a daily basis. But some days, those things that I have in place, I have a good circle of support. You're a part of that circle of support. I have some other tools and resources, like I use like prayer and meditation and things like that. I'm always focusing on, personal and professional development.
Yeah.
Um, but how it's really impacted or the daily challenges that I have, it's just I have to take everything an hour at a time, sometimes a week at a time. And then when things get to be too much, those that know me know I'm famous for going off the grid. Charge. So yeah, I think it's impacted how I show up and how I'm able to really embrace, and really love on the people that love on me, to the fullest
Yeah.
extent of my ability.
Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned some of the daily challenges that you encounter, on the day-to-day basis, having those good days and those bad days. But you also put in there some of the secrets of your success, some of the abilities and some of the coping mechanisms that you use. And I know, and I want to share, make that a little clear for folks that, are out there, is to find those coping mechanisms, to find those things that work for you to help you get through. Michele, you said, you're creative, you write, sometimes, you'll go off the grid if need be. And that's all a part of self-care. And the meditation is paramount, is totally key in doing that. So it'd be interesting to just kind of hear with the other people out there listening, some of the things, if you haven't really thought about these things, to try to figure out some of the things that will help you to cope through the traumas and from your triumphs to the tragedies and tragedies to triumphs. Because sometimes we go back and forth sometimes because life happens to us, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we're always evolving. Life is always happening. And so in you saying all of that, what has been one of the defining moments in your life? Like just something that kind of just honed in to really just solidify everything that you've encountered, everything that you've endured, the tragedies that have actually brought you to the triumph. What is one of those or some of those defining moments?
Well, I will tell you this. One of the most memorable defining moments for me was when I had the opportunity with some other disabled veterans to climb the Andes Mountain. It was
Wow.
an organization. Yeah, yeah, I know that was kind of extreme. I told you I'm a picture. So I would say that was my paradigm shift. That was my pivotal, that was my turning point. Um, because due to having the challenges of connecting, because we are hardwired for connection, um, I attempted to end my life for a total of 5 times. And so it was right after that, I believe between the fourth and fifth time, it might have been the fifth time, that I was introduced to this program to help disabled veterans find their way back to integrating back into the community. Because at that point, I had completely shut down and gone off the grid. I had isolated myself from everybody, and I had gone through a period of homelessness for about 6 months, and had lost a lot of things within a short amount of time during that period. I'd lost, my apartment, my job, a significant relationship. You know, um, in my mind, I had thought I had lost the support of my family, but I had not. They just did not understand where I was and what I was going through, and I couldn't articulate it. And so when I got out there and experienced the beauty of the nature, but also the challenging part of summiting that mountain, so that was my turning point. That was my point because I am definitely afraid of heights. Like I'm definitely to this day. And so I tell people all the time, I didn't, I didn't conquer that fear, but I confronted it. And I will continue to confront my fears because to me that is conquering it. I will do it afraid, but I will do it. And so um, there was a point. There was pretty precarious at one point, and in my mind, I was like, Michele, like, what are you doing? Why are you here? And it was in that moment that it just something spoke to my heart. It spoke to my spirit. I realized, I didn't really want to die. I don't want to carry this excruciating pain
The
that
pain.
I'm carrying, that I've carried around, that I'm carrying on a daily basis. And I realized that this is mountain. So I would say that would have to be one of the defining moments. And that was actually where I got the vision for a nonprofit healing. As I was hiking up this mountain, as I was roped in with these other individuals, and they were male veterans, so that was two things that I had to confront that I'd been fearful of because I was fearful of, mistrustful of the opposite sex, especially in the military because of what I endured, and I was afraid of heights. But I'm out here in the middle of Peru on the Andes Mountain with 10 other veterans that happen to be roped
And you did it.
in. I realized,
really kicking and screaming involved to really get up that mountain.
most definitely, there was some kicking and there was some screaming, there was some throwing up, because I knew nothing about elevation sickness, there was some, there was some
Oh, yes,
preparing
that's real.
time. But what it helped me to realize, because the slogan for this organization was, what's within you is stronger than what's in your way. And if you can climb a mountain, you can climb anything. So what that helped me to tap back into was the resiliency that we all have within us. I had just lost sight of it. I wasn't able to trace it because of all of the pain that I was living with, dealing with, the sexual trauma, the betrayal. I'm serving my country, and the very service member that I'm serving alongside has violated me in the most intimate way that you can for a woman. Um, and so that was my defining moment. That was my paradigm shift. That was my turning point where I was coming back, began to start coming back into this woman that I once knew, because it had gotten to the point that when I looked in the mirror, I didn't even recognize the woman that I saw looking back at me.
Mm,
And I was tired of pretending that everything was okay. I was tired of wearing that mask. I was tired of this, this illusion of this life that I had that had crumbled anyway, this perfect life that I had, because at that point, by that point, I was no longer married. I had divorced my ex-husband, and there was some issues there as well. Some violence, some domestic violence, and some, mental emotional. And so I was literally at the end of my rope, and this when I made up in my mind, this was a do or die thing. If this doesn't do it, then you know there is
right.
no coming back from that. And that was where I birthed Healing Women, Healing Nations. It was a journal entry that I made when we got down from that mountain in August of 2013. And 2 years later, August of 2015, was when that journal entry actually was birthed into the nonprofit. So that was my most defining moment. So there, that was the silver lining. Um,
That's really amazing, Michele, because in you going through all of that on top of that mountain and climbing that, and I'm sure that's a struggle. I can't even attest to that. How scary that could have been. All of the physiological changes that your body had to go through, like with the oxygen and stuff of that nature. So that had to be just like so difficult. But you confronted it. And I like something that you said. You said by confronting it, you conquer it. Because you have to get to a place in your life where you have to be able to face a lot of the fears, a lot of the scary things that frightens you. But if you can at least face it, and confront it, there's some sense of solace, some peace in that. With that also being said, you birthed Healing Women, Healing Nations out of that. So how amazing. Like I look at you and you're the epitome of an overcomer. You're the epitome of a strong warrior woman, a person that is relentless and taking back their power. Because when you went and reported that assault that happened to you in the military and all of the backlash and all of the stuff that I'm sure came with that, the emotions and not having the support system, I'm sure people thinking, oh, you probably did something to encourage all the wrong thinking that
right.
we have as a society, which is so wrong, and it just re-victimizes and hurts that person over and over again. And then, like you said something very key and paramount. You didn't want to die. A lot of people think that when these types of things happen, these tragedies, that a person wants to die. But you said something very paramount. You said you just didn't want to die. You wanted the pain to stop. So
Yeah.
you had those several suicide, thank God, failed suicide attempts on your life, but it's because you wanted the pain to stop. With that being said, is there any insight that you can give female veterans or any person for that matter? And I do, put female veterans out there because I am a female veteran myself. And I know that we oftentimes experience things that sometimes other women don't because they've never served in the United States military. But for female veterans, but for anyone of that matter, are there any insights that you can actually give to those individuals based on how we show up in life and based off of your past experiences in dealing with the tragedy that actually happened to you?
Well, let me say this. I want to address, because I know that there are individuals that, because of the assault, they have attempted to end their lives, and it really bothers me when I hear this. And I always go for the jugular when I hear this. Some people have made the statement and continue to make the statement that people that attempt suicide, they don't really want to die. They're just doing it for attention. It's
I've
not
heard
for
that.
attention. It's not for attention. It's a way to escape the pain, and they don't see
Mhm.
any other way at that time. Because when something happens traumatic to you like that, it changes the psyche of how you process and how you do
Mhm.
life. Because you go into survival mode, and you don't come out of it. You're like in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. And so, if I had to say what is some of the insights that I would have to give, is to remember who you were before that happened. Remember the things that you have contributed, the joyful times in your life. And it's easier said than done because we are our most critical of ourselves, but allow yourself some compassion. Be gentle for yourself. Don't feel like that there's a timeline for you to go through this process of healing and recovery. Don't feel that you are insignificant. And I know that's much easier said than done. And it took a lot of work. The insight that I would give, as soon as you, because some people block it out, like they mental have a mental block. They don't even remember the event at all until years later, and then it starts to
Mhm.
come up. But as soon as you get to that point, do not hesitate to go and get support. Do not hesitate to go and get help so that you can begin the journey to knowing that you're not alone, you're not at fault, and that though it's going to be a hard journey, it is a journey that can be accomplished. And so that is some of the insight. Seek help as soon as possible. Rally around your sources of support. Find things that soothe you, support you. Um, Remember who you are. Go back and look and review the good periods and the good parts of your life when you have those challenging moments. And I will stress and stress and stretch, reach out and get help. Um, don't be embarrassed about having
Right.
to have a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Don't be ashamed because you are not alone. The statistics I gave earlier, 1 in 5 women, 1 in 71 men, that's nationally. Within the military, 1 in 5 women and 1 in, I believe, 100 men, will have experienced sexual assault in the military. And so you're not alone. Chances are, within your group of friends, someone has experienced it, but they're holding it. They just haven't shared it for whatever reason. And so you being strong enough to be the first one to take the step to get the help that you need will empower others to be able to speak, because the only way that we're going to heal and empower others to heal is by being transparent and getting the help that we need.
Exactly. And that's why I'm so glad that you are highlighting the Sexual Assault Awareness Month, because transparency is so key. There's not a lot of people that can come on a live show and discuss and talk about candidly and as openly as you have about the things that's transpired in your life and how it's now has made you who you are today. But you didn't just stop there. You didn't just stop with you. You actually created and founded and developed these organizations that are sources of support for other people out there, a place,
Mhm.
a safe haven, a place where they can come and discuss things with their emotions and things of that nature. I know that you have a support group. We had a brick and mortar and things that you did there in Jacksonville, Florida, where women would come as a source of support to support them. And I know with now the COVID-19 and everything that's going on, you also have an online support group
Right,
that you have for women. Anyone can tune in across the globe, across the world.
right.
They can tune in for the support group and get the support that they need. For those that may not have that strong circle and that source of support that they need, they might not have that inner circle or group. I'm here to let you guys know that Healing Women, Healing Nations is a great organization where you can come and be a part, where you can thrive, where you can learn to live and lead a successful and productive life and move past the trauma, move past the hurt. You will never forget it, but
You're biased. You're biased.
but it's very, very true.
Right.
I've worked with the organization. I've worked within the organization, and I gotta say, Michele Quartier is a woman of her word. She goes out. She advocates um, for every person. It doesn't matter gender. It doesn't matter race. It's for every
Race,
single
color, creed,
person.
doesn't matter. Because this is the thing. I want to highlight this as well. This is the thing. When you are violated in that way, your voice is taken, whether it be, actual, literal, or proverbial. And when your voice is taken, it affects how you show up.
It does.
I want to, you become the visible invisible. You become a shell of the person that you could have been. And so we have, I believe, three basic needs, desires: to give and receive love, to be seen, and to be heard. And for a long time, I was invisible. I wasn't heard. My voice was taken. But now that I've regained my voice, it is my life's mission to help others regain their voice and to know that they're not alone and to know that life after adversity is possible no matter what you've endured. You don't have to fit into this shell or this box that people have created for you of who you need to be and how long you need to grieve and how long you need to heal and how you need to be in the world. No, you determine that. It was already put in you by your creator how you're going to be, in spite of the things that you've encountered. And so, I just felt the need to share that, and I'm speaking to those that may have encountered it, and you're wondering, you're on the fence about whether or not you should seek out and get help. I'm speaking to that person today that may be on the verge of ending their life. You are not alone. You matter. You are loved. Reach out and get the support that you need. And before, you know, as we come to the end of our series today, we will be providing resources and tools for you to reach out to. So do not take your life. You have much to live for.
And so that is the call to action. The call to action is for you to reach out, to step up, to speak out, so that you can take your voice back, get your power back, own your life again, and don't let the perpetrator take anything else from you. It's time that you start living and start breathing new life, going on new adventures, and all of those wonderful things. And Healing Women, Healing Nations can help you do that. Michele Quartier of Michele Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. They can also help you do that within that organization. I'm sure you're going to post some things here on the channel so that
Yeah.
people can actually reach out. Yep. So, and it's Healing Women, Healing Nations of Northeast Florida. When you go on and Google that, make sure you put in the Northeast Florida part so that you can get the
I will put the links
information to help
in the
yourself.
comment section. Yeah. Um, what I wanted to also say is, you know, some of the things that you will encounter as a survivor, you may find that it's difficult for you to have really enriching interpersonal relationships. You may have, but there's always a tomorrow. So don't beat yourself up if it's challenging for you to have a really enriching connections. That's a part of the symptoms of having PTSD, which a lot of survivors have. The post traumatic stress, and
Mhm.
there are numerous things that I battle with. Anxiety and panic. Just things. Um, I don't even want to go into all of that, but it's a part of. It's not who I am. Like I am not my
No.
diagnosis. I am not my trauma. This is something that happened to me, but it is not who I am.
Mhm.
And so, just remember who you are in spite of what happened. It didn't define you. It's a blip in the road.
Yep, a blip in the road that you can definitely overcome. So just let us know, Michele, how we can actually find and support your cause and your organization for those that are out there listening.
Well, like I said, I'll be putting the links in the comment section, but If you want to find out more about what I do, Michele Speaks, MicheleSpeakz.com is my website, and my Facebook platforms. I'll just put those in the comments section. If you want to reach out to me and shoot me an email, it's michellespeaks@gmail.com. Um, let's connect. If you need support, if you need encouragement, if you need resources, you know, I'm available for you. And so is Miss Sandra of Inspired for Purpose, who was also a fellow veteran. I did want to highlight that going forward. I spoke earlier about us highlighting 3 other individuals that have triumphed over, have endured, have experienced assault, and they have turned their tragedies into triumphs, and they're doing phenomenal things within their communities. And we're actually also going to be highlighting a male. You're going to hear from the male perspective, because there are many men that have encountered or have experienced sexual trauma that have never spoken it or never voiced it or never addressed it. And so be sure that you tune in, over the period of the next 4 weeks. Each week, we're going to highlight a different individual, and you make sure that you tune in and share this so that others will be able to be empowered as well. And so for the resources, if you are in the military, have served in the military, you're seeking support and you're seeking services, Protect Our Defenders is an amazing resource, and I'll put that in the links as well. But it's protectourdefenders.com. That is an excellent source for military members. For the civilian sector, RAINN.org, RAINN.org, is an excellent resource of support and services and information. And again, I'll put that in the comments. And then if you are encountering a crisis now, there's a 24-hour hotline where you can get services, and that's 1-800-656-4673. That's 1-800-656-HOPE. So I just want you to remember, if you remember nothing else,
Hey
there
guys,
is after adversity. There is life after adversity.
fantastic. Michele, hey, once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for leading the cause on this, and being there in the forefront to lead this, just sexual awareness assault month, so that people, men, women, whomever, can go and get the information that they need. We want to thank you all for joining us. Again, you've been on with Sandra, the Actions with Inspire for Purpose, and also the founder, the CEO of Healing Women, Healing Nations, and Michele Speaks, Michele Quartier. Again, we just want to say thank you, Michele, for your amazing story. Thank you that your story truly is tragedy to triumph.
Thank you so much, and be sure to tune in next week, and again and again and again. If you are suffering, go get the help, because if you hide it, you can't
And
heal
heal
it.
it.
Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.